Welcome to the sophomore parent presentation. Though we would have liked to do this in person as a part of our normal freshman and sophomore parent night, COVID had other plans. And so in lieu of that, we are offering this just geared towards sophomore parents, or at this point, rising junior parents, and really focusing on what is most important for you all to know as we move into the junior year and think about the college counseling process specifically. We will cover our philosophies and introduce you to our program and give you some advice as we move forward. Did want to start with some introductions. My name, if you aren't aware, is Miss Catherine Souza. I am the Associate Director of College Counseling here at Archmere. I am joined in this picture with Mr. Chris Bohm, who is the Director of College Counseling, Liz Lyon, who is our assistant, and then this is Jake from Syracuse, who ironically is the only one not in orange. My background, as well as Chris's, come from college admissions. I have worked at Lehigh University, Muhlenberg College, and Albright College. And at Albright is actually where I originally worked for Chris. He was at Albright for 17 years, ending as the Assistant VP of Enrollment Management, as well as the Director of Admissions. Liz has been at Archmere for 16 years at this point and is also a past parent. She is really the one that is responsible for making sure that everything runs smoothly and that eventually all of your child's information gets to the right colleges. We will also be adding to our team this year, Mr. Logan Duffy. You are probably aware of Mr. Duffy from the admissions office. He actually came originally from a background in college admissions, and he will be taking a small caseload of students in order to help us make sure that each student gets as much personal attention as possible. Logan had originally or previously worked at several different institutions over many years. In total, the team brings over 55 years of college admissions and counseling experience, and we really hope that we are able to meet and exceed your expectations of helping your child through this really important process. Here's the agenda. The great thing about being in a video is I don't have to read every single thing on the screen, but we will go over all of these things in this presentation. I almost said tonight. Additionally, if there are things that you were hoping we would go over and didn't, I would certainly invite you to call or email and schedule one of our Rising Junior Summer optional meetings that I'll talk about at the end. But know that this is not the start and end of information. This is really just the start, and we are certainly available to answer additional questions, things that we did not review before. So let's talk a little bit about the timeline. And one of the things I'd like to do is just highlight for you really quickly an online resource that's available to you. Screen sharing. So here I am on my Blackbaud account that each of you have. If you go to the resources tab, in the resources, you are probably used to going to some of the different things here, announcements, maybe Sage, parent and student resources. Would I direct you here to these beautiful faces from the class of 2017 to the college counseling? There are lots of different resources on here, links, and all these different guides that we have. In particular, though, I draw your attention to the 4-year college plan. This plan legitimately has mapped out for every single year what a student should be doing, what a parent should be doing, and what we as the college counseling department are doing. So I highly recommend, particularly for the junior and senior year where there's a lot of information that's available on that guide, to take a trip over to Blackbaud, download it, and use it to your advantage to really start to keep track of the many things that are sort of on the plate of the student and the parent throughout this process. Back to the presentation now. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about sort of the guidance and college counseling timeline. The first thing is, as you are aware, your child has been meeting on a regular basis with Father Zag, and that continues. When we sort of start officially the college search process, which happens later in the fall of junior year, that does not mean that Father Zag is no longer their guidance counselor. He continues to serve as their guidance counselor, assisting them emotionally, academically, and socially through their graduation. We just get added as an additional counselor. As always, we are available for questions and conversations, particularly over the summer. We do ask for your patience and understanding in the fall as we are in the weeds with our seniors. So we are certainly available for questions and conversations, but it just might be a little bit more difficult to find some time. But the summer is a great time to connect with us. We do embrace a cooperative counseling model until midway through the junior year. So again, Father Zag being really the point person, but us being available for questions and conversations as you have them. We have had quite a few early exposures and introductions, class meetings, college programming that we've had. I know several of your students have been logging in and attending the college visits we had this spring, maybe coming to different programs, the Y business that was virtual this year, or the Y engineering, or things like that. Additionally, we did visit them in their health classes 2 different times. So that was great to start to engage with them. We will assign college counselors at the beginning of this year. So we do wait until the summer's over. We will make an announcement, email students and parents on what the official assigning of the college counselors. It is most often by alphabet. Though Mr. Duffy, again, will be taking some students for the first time this year. We will hold our college panel in November, which is a required program for students. So that is an important kicking off point where we welcome 4 to 5 different reps from a variety of different types of schools to start to ask some great questions of those reps and start to get the wheels turning in our students' head about what they need to be thinking about, and to start to break down some of the barriers and walls that we forget that college reps are just people. And so helping students become more comfortable with those people is a really important part of this process. So by the time they become a senior, and maybe they're in an interview setting or they're in a college visit one-on-one with a rep, they aren't as terrified of that person and recognize they're just a person. We will hold junior parent nights in December and January. It is required that one parent attend at least one of those programs. Both parents are welcome, and there's no need to attend both programs. They are identical, but it is the nice kicking off point where we focus again on junior parents and really making sure that we dive deep into the weeds about what's going to happen, what's some expectations, some philosophies, the way we run the program. Things that we will introduce today, but dive deeper into in December and January. And finally, we will officially begin meeting with your students in December and January. They will be individual 20 to 30-minute meetings where we are really just starting to get to know them, break down some barriers, help make them comfortable with us, get some initial questions answered. Those are low pressure meetings and very intentionally just the student, so we can start to get to know each other before we really go full steam ahead in the second semester of junior year. I wanted to start by highlighting some of the philosophies that really guide our program. Chris and I believe in these, and Liz and Logan believe in these very strongly, and really want our families and our students to understand some of these overarching philosophies that really guide the decisions that we make. We firmly believe the search is about the student, and really are always attempting to center the student in this process and really encourage them to take ownership, to take on additional responsibility through the process. And part of that is because at the end of the day, of course, the student is the one going to college. But the second part is really this second bullet point, which is that we believe that it's a wonderful growth opportunity. Most parts of the process and most things that students can learn through this process are going to serve them far beyond the college search process. Understanding meeting deadlines, where to find information, how to schedule a visit, right? These are similar things they'll do. They'll eventually have to schedule their own doctor's appointments. They are going to have to meet various deadlines, whether in college or in their career. Handling disappointment or failure at certain points. Again, a skill that unfortunately our children need to learn, and really how to handle that and not let it define them and really move forward. How to celebrate success as well, right? So there's a lot that we believe that students grow in this process. And oftentimes, the way that we approach this is that we aren't always going to give a right answer. Oftentimes, to be honest, because there's not one. You'll hear a lot in college admissions, it depends. Depends on the student, depends on the school, depends on the application plan, it depends on a lot. So oftentimes there isn't a right answer. But even if there is something that I believe might be a better choice, my goal is to provide the students with the pros and cons of the decisions they're considering and empower them to make that decision. And we start in small little ways up into that larger decision where they get to decide where they want to call home for 4 years. I want them to feel that they are well equipped to make that decision. And at the end of it, I tell students, right, I don't have to sit in classes for 4 years. I don't have to live there. You do. So I want you to feel like you made this decision. We will, of course, support them. We will, again, provide them those pros and cons. But that decision making and learning how to weigh the pros and cons and make good decisions is a really important part as well. We truly, truly believe that getting in is not as important as succeeding. While admissions is at the front end, the goal is that a student is graduating in 4 years and finding a place that they are really excited to call home. So while getting in is the first step, being successful at that campus and really continuing to grow academically, socially, emotionally is an important part of that as well. We believe that casual conversations produce great results, right? As I already mentioned with that initial meeting, it is casual and low pressure intentionally. If we run right into this and we are high pressure and asking tons of questions and expecting a student to know everything, it doesn't typically produce the results that we want. And so having casual conversations, both us as their counselor and you as their parents, is an important kind of baby step as we ramp up in this process. We want to make students more comfortable and confident in who they are and what they believe, how they kind of talk about themselves or write about themselves, represent themselves. Again, these things that will serve them well in job interviews or other things of that nature. There is no magic formula. This was my favorite question when I worked at Lehigh. I used to get it a lot, whether it was, what's the one activity that my child should do that's going to get them into college? Or should they take APs and get this, or an honors and get that? There were all these questions, and there just isn't a golden ticket. And it would be certainly easier if there were, right? But really understanding that there's not a magic formula, that it depends really is an honest answer. It depends on the student, it depends on the situation, it depends on the school. Two schools that your student may be interested in may have very different philosophies about the same type of thing, right? Should I take foreign language in my senior year? One school might say, if you have something else you'd rather take, do that. Another might say, hey, we're a liberal arts school, we'd really love to see 4 years of language. So again, there's not a magic formula. Every student and every search is different. This is usually the part of the presentation where we ask you to raise your hand if you have another child that's gone through the process. And if you have, you probably are already starting to see the differences. Maybe this is your oldest and you have some younger ones behind. This also is important though, even when talking with friends, or when your child is talking with friends, when you're talking with other parents, remembering that every student and every search is different. Students' priorities are different. Their academic qualifications are different, their interests are different. There's just so much that is individualized about this process. So we encourage you and we encourage your child to avoid comparison as much as possible. It's a really easy trap to fall into. And this, again, is something we really talk with students about. Having such a small and intimate community is such a wonderful thing, but can cause some challenges when it comes to comparison in terms of the college search process. And last but not least, one of the things that we will really challenge your child to do is to know the why before we talk about where. So before we jump in and say, I'm interested in this school and that school, really talking about why they want specific things. If I think I want to go to an urban area, I'm going to challenge them to explain to me why. If they really want to go farther away from home, I'm going to challenge them to explain why. If they indicate interest in a specific major, I'm going to challenge them to tell me why. And that's twofold. One, it helps us as the counselor better understand your child and the way that they are thinking things through and what their priorities might be. But it is also going to help your child because they will eventually be asked those questions in writing, in interview. Why this major? Why this school? Why these different things? And so we start early on with really encouraging your child to make sure that they embrace that and are well prepared to excel in that area. So what are schools looking for? This is still a little early, but as you have rising juniors, this will be here before we know it. So let's talk a little bit about some of these different things. Fit. You will hear, or fits actually is a word we're using more often these days and adding a plural to it. This is something we'll talk about a lot. And this is a two-way street. We often think about fit as just the student finding their fits in terms of college, but it is a two-way street. This is making sure the student finds schools that are a nice fit for them, but also that the college finds students that are a good fit for their community. And the goal, of course, is to match that, for the student to find a school that they are also a good fit for. One of the things we're going to stress is that students understand the institution. Working at Lehigh, you can imagine I often heard, well, I was at Lafayette today as well, or I applied to Lafayette as well. And when you really think about Lafayette and Lehigh, for example, there are some really major differences in those campuses and those communities and environments, the way in which they deliver their education. And it doesn't mean that a student couldn't apply to both, but they really should understand the institutions and understand the differences. That's a really important part of the process and really important for the college. So again, that goes back to that match piece. One of the ways in which a college is identifying if your child is a good match is by really making sure that they understand the place and the institution, why they want to go to Temple, why they might want to go to Boston College, right? There's all these different schools. But again, really understanding the institution, really understanding what being a Jesuit school means when we talk about a St. Joe's. The next thing is enthusiasm for the school, right? That we all like to be liked, and colleges are the same way. They want to know that a student is engaged and excited about that school because that makes them more likely to yield them and to eventually welcome them to campus that fall. They want to see that you have an enthusiasm for learning, or your child has an enthusiasm for learning, and they want to see that they have an enthusiasm for other things. This is where extracurricular activities and passions come into play. Again, there is no golden ticket when it comes to that piece of it. It is really about what your child loves doing and allowing them to excel at that. One of my favorite clubs that I used to talk about was the people watching club, right? That was something that students are really excited and engaged about at Lehigh. And so again, it's not a golden ticket type of thing, because there's not one right activity. It's just about really showing a passion and showing commitment and showing follow through about the different things that they're excited about. Academic qualifications are, of course, going to be something that schools are looking for, recognizing that different schools have different profiles. We would traditionally define an academic profile as GPA and SATs, as well as adding in the potential of things like rigor, as well as academic growth, trends upward, for example. And so that will be an important part of the process as well, really making sure that the student is identifying and applying to schools that are a good academic qualification match for them. And last but not least, they want your child to be genuine and authentic. They are 17 or will be 17 and 18 years old when they apply. They should come off as 17 and 18-year-olds. They should be authentically and genuinely excited about the things that they love. I've sat in countless interviews at Albright and Muhlenberg where a student is talking about a specific activity, project, whatever it might be, because they think it's the right thing to talk about, but they have no actual joy or passion about it. So really making sure that your student embraces the idea of being authentic and genuine through the process and not being too caught up in what a college wants. Just because a college wants it does not mean it is what's right for us as a student. And most college reps would agree that they'd rather talk about something that the student loves and maybe isn't the most impressive thing on their resume. So let's talk a little bit about healthy preparation for college. One of the things that we would encourage you to do, and that I believe many of you have already been doing, is to talk to your child about their academics. At this point, they have 2 full years under their belt. So hopefully you've had different conversations with them, maybe even Father Zach or their teachers, about their academic performance. Hopefully you're aware of what they're taking next year in their junior year, which is certainly an important part of the process as well. But that academic piece is going to be the most important when we talk about college admissions. It is the number one thing that colleges are really looking for and the best predictor of success in college. Healthy preparation is understanding that success comes in all shapes and sizes, and that there are students that are successful, and the way that we define that success might be different for each student and might be different in different areas or arenas or things of that nature. As I talked about, supporting casual conversations that explore at the macro level instead of the micro at this point. We will get to the micro. There is plenty of time, but right now having macro level conversations are likely to be more fruitful, more helpful, and more positive with your child. Promote, encourage, and be excited about your students' interests. Really letting them run with their passions, whether that is comic book club that's recently been started over the last few years, mock trial, athletics, whatever it might be, whether it is interior design, engineering, or history, really encouraging them to explore that passion. One of the other things we also hear a lot about is this pressure of knowing what you want to major in. And some of that comes from the media, right? There's all this pressure. You have to know exactly right now what you want to do. The reality is that most colleges, undecided is the most common incoming major, if you will. And nationally, students change their major more than 2 times while in college. So even those students that think they know what they want to study may not actually know just yet. Most colleges allow students to apply undecided. Sometimes there's an undecided within a specific college, but those are things we can worry about later on. They will also, as juniors, have the opportunity for junior career day, some things like that. They do also have in their CIALFO, they've completed a career-based assessment that you can review with them. So it is not a bad thing to have your child be thinking about this, but if possible, avoid putting any pressure. They already feel it themselves, and they feel it from their peers that maybe do know what they want to do, but it's completely okay if they don't yet know what they want to major in. Some more healthy preparation. We have given your students access to CIALFO, and one of the things that can be really helpful and really easy to do right now is to keep a record of your child's activities, or they keep a record of their activities in CIALFO. There is an extracurricular activities section. They add each one in, all the prompts are there, they know exactly what to do, and it eventually can be printed out as a resume. Additionally, on that resources page that I shared earlier, there is a whole resume guide as well. This is helpful, one, because freshman and sophomore year are pretty fresh in their mind. By the time I get seniors in my office in October and trying to remember what they did freshman year, it can be a little bit challenging. So keeping that now is an important and really easy step to do. Keeping proper perspective can be a little more challenging than that, but really remembering developmentally, students are just getting into that phase where they're ready to start making some of these tough decisions and have these tough conversations. You may have been at one of our open house programs where we showed the graph about stress levels and how many students really believe that this is a life or death decision. And that is completely the opposite of what we believe. It is an incredibly important process. It is something we want students to take seriously. It is something we want them to actively engage in. But if we are always at our peak stress when it comes to this and don't have a proper healthy perspective, we don't represent ourselves well in writing or in person, and we can't make our best decisions because we're so emotionally charged or stressed. So really encouraging your child, and sometimes parents need this as well, to make sure you have that healthy perspective about the process. understanding the process, that's where we come in. Our goals are really to make sure that students and parents are educated about this process, know what to expect and when, and we do that through programs like this traditionally, like our panel, like our parent nights, and like the junior and senior seminar classes that take place in the second semester of junior year and first semester of senior year for students. Those are all about equipping you and your children with knowledge about this process. So really, we do a lot proactively to help you understand the process, but again, we're here and available for questions that come up as you move your way through this process. Another important part of this is really looking at cues from your child. I get questions all the time. My student has no interest in talking about college, then don't talk about college just yet. My student is not that academically motivated yet. Okay, maybe encourage them again, but really looking at cues from them. What we don't want to do is force them into conversations they're either not ready to have or not interested in. They usually don't end up well. So any small glimmer where you see an opportunity to mention something college, if they say, oh, my best friend Susie went and visited a school online, they did a virtual visit, say, oh, is that something you might be interested in doing as well? Encouraging again, rather than pushing and requiring them. There will be a point at which we do that, but we are far from it at this point. So please, again, don't feel like you have to rush through this process. There's plenty of time. Again, keeping an eye on how they handle failure and losing. That is inevitably for most students a part of this process. So really helping them learn those skills now will help it become a little more smooth in the process. We encourage things like, would you be interested in, or there's an opportunity, your friend is going, would you want to go? We'd certainly support you. Again, these very casual types of statements that don't put pressure on your student or feel like they have to be ready to do this just yet. Some of you might have students that are eager and excited and ready to do this, right? We had several students that basically visited every virtual visit that we had this spring, which is great. And if your student's excited and ready, absolutely run with it. But know that if your child's not, that's okay. There's a spectrum and there's students on every part of that. And it changes. You may have a student right now that is full steam ahead, and at some point in the fall, it's going to drop off, and that's okay too. Really taking the cues from your child in terms of what they're feeling about this process. So what does this really look like, this healthy preparation, right? A challenging course load based upon your student's ability and motivation. Again, what is right for a college when it comes to something like rigor or student schedule doesn't mean it's always the right thing for your child. We always want to find the balance between challenging them, but allowing them to be successful. Putting them in a schedule with 4 APs when they really can't handle that amount of homework doesn't really accomplish the goal of what we're hoping in showing a challenging schedule, right? So what is challenging for every student is going to be different based on, again, their abilities and their motivation, right? You might have a student that really excels in STEM fields and really is not a humanities student, right? So find the areas of challenge in STEM, and in the areas of humanities, college prep is perfectly fine, right? So find that balance for your student, and that motivation piece as well is really important. Balance of outside the classroom commitments and interests. We recognize that in the age of COVID, particularly in the spring semester, this was a challenge, that there was not a lot of opportunity for students to have outside of classroom commitments. And we recognize that we don't yet know what the fall will look like. Know that colleges are well aware of this. And so this isn't something that colleges are going to say, well, why didn't they do something second semester of sophomore year? They are going to be well aware of that. There are still ways to find time online or through different things, different hobbies, right? It doesn't only have to be structured activities that are listed eventually on an application. But if your child taught themselves to play the guitar this spring or picked up a new hobby of gardening, right? There are things that that your student can convey to a college. Additionally, this summer, we recognize that the opportunities that might have traditionally been available are not. There are many programs that have moved to online, some of which are more reasonably priced than others. So that is something to be aware of. But if your child was hoping to do a summer program and didn't have the opportunity to go in person, maybe considering one of the programs that is online now. Places like Wake Forest have moved their program online. As an example, Scranton, there's several different ones. Some of them are programs, some of them are just regular college classes that your child might get some exposure to. Happiness and play, we do encourage students to make sure that they are doing things that fuel their passions, that fuel their soul, that make them happy, particularly over the summer. We want to make sure that they are really feeling very happy and recharged. And so for some of you, you might be saying, my child cannot do a Zoom, another full summer of Zoom classes, and that's okay, right? For some of your children, that might be appropriate, but really figuring out what your child needs to recharge before they start junior year. Additionally, things like leadership, commitment, dedication, and initiative. These are key things that colleges are going to be looking for. So again, leadership is going to come maybe in the junior year, but often in the senior year. But things like commitment, dedication, those are absolutely things that they can work on right now, as well as initiative. Again, there's a variety of different things listed here that can help show that. But again, these bigger picture things. Second only to academic performance, the best indicator for your graduation is follow through. One of the ways in which colleges see follow through is in how long they've dedicated or the commitment level they've shown for an activity. So those things they've done for 4 years or maybe even longer, right? The Boy Scout, the figure skater that's been skating since they were 5, or the student that's worked at the same camp that they went to as a child. So again, there's a lot of different ways to show this, some of which are listed here, some of which are very structured. Some of things are a willingness to raise your hand, right? A willingness to volunteer for things. Those are all things that can be really positive. Some specific topics for rising juniors. We imagine that testing is on your mind at this point, and there's a variety of different testing topics to quickly review. Your children will take at Archmere, pending that we are in a normal school setting and environment, obviously, fingers crossed on that, in October. This is a practice SAT. It is not reported as a part of the admissions process, but it is really helpful at getting an idea of where your child's initial testing is, helpful as we start to think about specific schools, and is also the National Merit Qualifying Test, which is a small scholarship that's awarded to high test takers each year. So that will happen in October. Some of your children may have taken AP exams already. Several will take AP exams at the end of junior year based on their schedule. Those are typically used more for placement rather than in the college search process itself. Doesn't mean that AP classes aren't important. It just means those test scores don't play as big of a role traditionally. There are subject tests that some schools traditionally have required. To be very honest, with COVID and the cancellations of testing throughout this entire spring for SAT, subject test requirements have rolled back at this point. We don't yet know if they will stay rolled back for the class of 2022. So we put it on your radar, but again, that will be a topic we talk about throughout the year, as well as in an individual meeting if it's appropriate. The vast majority of Archmere students in a traditional year do not take SAT subject tests. It's a very small subset of schools that might require or recommend them. We do offer practice tests. We have a practice test going on right now that students have been offered the opportunity to take through Compass. Compass will mail them a test. They proctor it themselves and then send it back in for scores. We do 2 throughout the year traditionally as well. So those are absolutely available. And we often get questions about test prep. We do not specifically endorse a certain company or partner with a certain company. There are a variety of different styles of test prep and different costs. So identifying what might be the right fit for your child is what's most important. There is a list on that resources page of some companies we are aware of, some individual testing, and things of that nature. So again, something to keep an eye on if that's of interest to you. We do recommend that if you are thinking about test prep, you probably want to reach out to either myself or Mr. Bohm about the timeline that you are considering for your student. Typically, most Archmere students, March is the first SAT that they take. Students that might take it in November or December are going to be in AP Calculus already as a junior. If your student is not yet in AP Calc or Honors Math Analysis actually, but instead in Honors Algebra 2 Trig or regular Algebra 2 trig, March is going to be the right timeline to make sure that they've had the math to be successful on that exam. Additionally, of course, additional time in our English courses will help with the reading and writing section. So something to consider there. I've talked a little bit already about junior year, but this is really when we will begin the college counseling program. Again, it will be in November. That is because through the months of September and October and beginning of November, we are really working very closely one-on-one and in groups with our seniors who are actively applying to colleges. So again, we ask for your patience and understanding in that time. And remember that the next year, we will do the same thing and focus on your seniors. But we will in November, again, with that panel. Then we will eventually have those individual meetings and parent nights in December and January, and we will begin the official family meetings in the second semester, typically in late February. Summer opportunities, it is this year and this summer and next summer are opportunities to showcase to college a student going above and beyond what is required. What is required is nothing. So a job, volunteering, taking an online class, doing a summer program, any of these things, even going to work for a day with someone in your network. These are all things that are above and beyond what is required. Again, recognizing that this summer is unique, that most hospitals are not taking volunteers or shadows. And so there are some limitations this year. We will certainly talk next year and see what the summer looks like about opportunities next year. And remember to enjoy this time to the fullest. This is a process that can be stressful. It does not have to be. It can be really enjoyable for you and your child as you start to think about their future, what they're most excited about, what they look for or hoping for in their home for the next 4 years, the place that you'll get to visit many different times. So please do your best to enjoy the process, and we will also try and encourage your child to do that as well. These are a variety of different resources that can be helpful as you move your way through the process if you are a reader and would like to read any of these. So again, things like The Truth About College Admission is very college specific, as is the FIS Guide, which actually profiles different schools. Life After College, Grit and Mindset are more psychology based and not necessarily the college search process, but have benefits of helping your child through that process. And the last lecture is a favorite of both mine and Mr. Bohm's, and has some really great overarching lessons, and actually is a book that I used in my WinRAM course this past year. So again, if you're a reader looking to get your hands on some different things, here's a variety of resources that might be helpful for you. Some closing thoughts. You are not behind. I absolutely positively promise you that. You are not behind. Your child is not behind. It is too early in this process to be behind. So again, if your child has no interest in talking about college yet, just roll with that. It is okay. It is not until the second semester of junior year that if your child is not engaging, we will start to sort of encourage them or strongly encourage them to engage. And things like the college seminar class that are required are one of the things that helps do that. Wherever your child is, that's where we'll start. So again, for those of you that have done a couple of virtual visits, awesome, we're gonna meet you there. For those of you that have a child that knows exactly what they wanna major and exactly what they wanna study, has a 4-year plan that they started 2 years ago, we'll meet you there. Again, we are here to help, and we help pick up, and we start helping by picking up wherever you're at and wherever your child is. Again, ask questions by phone and email. We will be working mostly virtually this summer, so the best way to probably get in touch with us is email instead of phone. But if you want a phone call, just shoot us an email and we can schedule that with you. And even better, encourage your child to reach out to us. And, typically we say stop by and ask, and hopefully in the fall we will be in person so they can do that, but encourage them to reach out via email as well. As we've said, the college search is about the student. So really starting now and encouraging your child to take ownership, and we will do the same thing is important. You'll never get these years back. And this is usually the sentimental part where Mr. Boehm talks about his children. He has a current junior rising senior in high school right now. But try again to remember to enjoy this process. And last but not least, we will be doing optional rising junior family summer appointments. So it's for the student and at least one parent is required. They're 30 minutes in length. They are optional and they have no set agenda. So if you are interested in that, come prepared with specific questions or topics you want to talk about. Again, those, since we haven't assigned counselors yet, whatever counselor is essentially on duty that day is who you'll be meeting with. So again, we will be doing those through the month of June and July. Optional, first come, first serve. So if you're interested, please make sure you sign up. Thank you so much. I hope it was an informative 42 minutes or so, and that you got your questions answered and have a better understanding of our philosophies and recommendations with your rising junior. But as I've said multiple times, please feel free to reach out should you have any questions. Thank you so much. Have a good one.